Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, listeners from coast to coast and worldwide, to a very special Sunday edition of the Hagman and Hagman Report. It's heard live every weekday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Today is a very special edition of our show. It's a 3-hour broadcast. Today is Sunday, June 10th, 2012. And with me in studio here is my co-host, Joe Hagman. Joe, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here on another Sunday edition. A special guest, Steve Quayle. It's going to be another powerful show. We received such an excellent response from the last Sunday show we did, and so much more information needs to be discussed, and we are very excited to do this again. We do have Steve on the line, and so I'll let you know that.
And folks, this is a man who needs a little introduction, but I've got to tell you, folks, if you have the opportunity, Steve is a prolific author of Angel Wars, Genesis Giants, Aliens and Fallen Angels, Genetic Armageddon. His website is stevequayle.com. That's Steve, Quayle.com. I would urge everyone to go there every day, bookmark it, look on his page for the news, and also definitely, if you have the opportunity, whatever books he's got left in his inventory, I highly recommend every book he's written, including Breathe No Evil as well. With that, I want to say welcome, my brother, Steve Quayle, to the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Well, hi, Joe. Hi, Doug. Tonight we're going to cover just how late it is in the game. Now, again, it's not just me saying what I'm going to be saying. It's others, Jim Sinclair, Richard Russell. A lot of the hard money guys have been warning about this day, but everything is upon us now. It's not we're getting ready to go to war. We are at war. And unfortunately, gentlemen, we are basically seeing right now the Extinction Protocol, which is, by the way, a great website. I'm not using it in the context of the website name, but being put into place. You know, I got an email tonight, Doug, before I went on the air. A guy doesn't understand why the Illuminati hates mankind so much and who gets to live and who gets to die. Well, it's real simple. They're going to make an oath to Lucifer, which they've already taken, mandatory. And ladies and gentlemen, before I went on the air tonight, and Doug, I think I've sent this to you, most people don't understand that Italy's main bank, the BNI, which is basically their Bank of Italy, has suspended their BNI investment network, has shut down. Now, instantly and immediately when I found that out, I sent an email to my friend, the international banker, derivatives trader guy, and he said, Steve, and this, by the way, Doug, is 2-hour-old information. This is the next phase of the contagion. The next thing that is to watch is the coming proverbial bank holiday that many have been talking about for some time. We are not that far from this. The only thing keeping us afloat is our status as world reserve currency. Also, Spain was bailed out again to the tune of over $140 billion. Spain is Greece, Greece is Italy, Italy is Portugal, and the pigs is France. And I talked to him, Doug, and he basically said the real exposure is going to come in France. And I believe Germany and Switzerland know that because of rumors in the international banking community. And this affects us in the United States, is that they're ordering massive amounts of paper to print their currency because their currencies, believe it or not, are appreciating as ours are depreciating, meaning the U.S. dollar. There's also a lot of intel out in the investment world, and I believe Jim Willey was the one on Golden Jackass report that talked about the specificity of Switzerland being 20 to 40,000 metric tons short on depositors' gold. What that ensures you guys is that somebody's been playing with other people's money, and the big boys don't take kindly to having billions, or in this case, close to $1 trillion ripped off. So the point that we are at, Doug, we're at an economic melting point, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because EMP, I found out over the weekend, has a dual meaning in a lot of the stuff that's floating around in quote, eyes-only reports and top-secret reports. Now, I'm not privy to those. I don't have those. But the gist of it is the electromagnetic pulse, we've been told by Gingrich and others that they absolutely expect the 1 second after event to take place. But what most people don't understand, and this is critical for people to understand, is that electromagnetic pulse can be generated either by a nuclear weapon, and a high-altitude burst is more effective that way, or it can also be, they actually have EMP bombs that they're not nuclear, but they create the same effect. Now, EMP equals EMP, and I'm not saying like energy equals mass times the velocity of light squared, but it came into my knowledge that the economic melting point, according to all the people I know, they say it's in motion now, it's in effect now, and it's basically batten down the hatches, Doug. So we're not moving towards it, we're in it, and basically, I ask the same question everybody asks me day in, day out, hour upon hour, email upon email, when? My answer is now.
Now, Steve, will this be a rapid process, do you think, or do you think this will, in other words, will we wake up to, and I know it's speculative, but is this going to be a rapid decline, or like a 24-hour thing, or a 14-day thing, or a 30-day thing?
Well, and I don't know
process.
that answer, Doug, and that's a critical question. It appears that there is a point that's known to the engineers of this whole thing. Here's what most people don't understand. The maxim that guides the Illuminati, the Luciferians, and the one world, new world order people is this: out with the old, in with the new. You're seeing that obviously in the realm of America, our once great nation. And look, I don't make any apologies for it. We kick God out of the school. We mock his commandments. We mock his son. We allow Sharia law to encroach. We allow the same philosophy of beheadings, mutilation, genital mutilation of young women, honor killings. We have embraced death in this land. And Jesus himself is the way, the truth, and the life, and he stands totally contrary. So it's interesting. I find it absolutely amazing that the words of Jesus are so succinct and important to this point. The salt, those who say they are believers, those who should have been acting as a believers, have failed to stand up, and henceforth they're getting trodden under the foot of men. I just got an email from a distraught lady listener in Florida. It just absolutely, I believe the woman's having a panic attack, and God help her. But the point is that it's dawned on her, Doug, that we're in really serious trouble. She sent me a picture, and you've probably seen one of them. They're gross. I don't recommend people watch them. I don't watch them. I have seen them years ago. I don't watch them anymore just because it makes me furious. But of the latest beheading that Islamic Jihad has posted on the Internet, if that isn't a gruesome, barbaric, if you will, future glimpse of things to come, and yet we have the whole embracing of Islam at the highest levels of law enforcement in the basically Islam good, Christians bad. And I think the fact is that years ago, God gave me the formula: identify, vilify, nullify, destroy. IVND. And now we're in the nullification stage that basically they want Christianity and absolutely off the face of the earth. The current administration is the most hostile. And let me share this. There is no way that the contemporary man in the White House is a Christian. No way. Because Jesus said, by their fruits ye shall know them. Some people say, you're not supposed to judge. Yes, I am to judge. I am able to judge the fruit. I am able to, against the Scripture, measure. Because, again, judge means sentence. God will sentence him. But we are to discern the times we have. And the entire world is absolutely astonished at what's happening to the United States. I hear from Christians all over the world, and these are people being given visions, whether they're in Australia, Indonesia, Siberia. It's pretty cool when you know that you've got Siberian internet, and all this stuff, and all these people, Doug, independently, God's showing them the destruction of the United States of America. And you sent me the thing before the show about 2 Chronicles 7:14. I'm telling you point blank, I was involved in 2 Chronicles 7:14 with Jimmy and Carol Webb 40 years ago, and it didn't take hold maybe but for 6 months. And then we didn't stand up, we didn't stand out, we didn't fight, and I say fight in the realm of the spirit, and now the spirit, the evil spirits are loosened, and we can get into that to such an extent that the pinnacles of hell are ecstatic, almost in ecstasy over just how much freedom now they have in the world. And that's why so many people are having dreams and visions and nightmares and actual apparitions and seeing things in the air now. Again, without which God held back, kept in abeyance beyond the boundaries of man for man's safety, men in evil collusion with fallen angels and evil spirits have released. And so basically they're not going to be watching horror stories anymore. They're going to be part of them.
Well, indeed, and you mentioned 2 Chronicles 7:14. Patriot John, a friend of this program, had said that he had seen signs all along this rural area, beginning with the church and spreading out from a church, where in rural Pennsylvania. So people are paying attention, I think, Steve, to what's going on, and I think that's a good sign. And I know that you were one of the first. Actually, at least from me, I heard that from you first. And we need to repent, but so that's a good sign. I think people are listening. I think we need to do that. But now you mentioned a lot of things: EMP, electromagnetic pulse, as well as the implosion of our economic system. And now you mentioned the euro, or the European Union. We all know that president of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, he's a Goldman Sachs alumni, whatever, and he was put there by the globalist elite. The entire euro is resting on the global elite at this point, or taking instructions from them. What do you see happening here in the near term with the European Union? Now, you said Italy is. Tell me again about Italy. That the Italian bank is going to have a bank holiday, basically.
Yeah, they just had one. I mean, they're literally closed tonight, and people in Italy are freaking out. Okay, and people want to go see that story. It's on the extinctionprotocol.worldpress.com. And, it's kind of interesting, Doug, because it says Italy, BNI depositors, and this is the Bank of Italy, but it's also the Bank Network Investment, and they didn't communicate anything to their depositors, and they just basically shut it down. They closed down all of the ATM machines. Everything is closed. Now, this is not the only bank in Italy, but this is one of the biggest banks in Italy, and the shenanigans are just like my friend V stated. He said this is the beginning of the bank holiday. By the way, let's see, let me just go to the time on this. The story I got was about 2 or 3 in the morning. First Bank of Italy just closed, and then he answered me early in the morning, then answered me again in the afternoon. But the point being, and here's what people have got to understand, lockout is coming down. That means that you'll go to sleep one night and you'll think it's all is well. And on the following Monday, this just happened, by the way. Obviously, Italy's 8 hours ahead of us or so. But the point is, you go to the deposit. You go to write a check on your bank and nothing works. You go to get money out of your ATM machine, nothing works. You go to call them, nothing works. So this is, and they actually tell a story of in Massimo, a policeman in Milan. He said, when I went to pay the mechanic's office for my car, the bankomat did not work, nor was I able to make a transfer. Actually, they took all my money away. Now, keep those words in mind. Now I have a 20 lira, whatever note in my, a 20 euro in my wallet, a wife, 2 daughters. How am I going to do this? My account is also where my salary goes, so what now? Again, global upheaval brings about a transform. A transform is a change in the way things are done, a mega shift. The ultimate, if you will, quantum leap, I love the word, from what was the old into the new. And they just so happen to have all the Mark of the Beast technology in place. There's also being floated that the devil may float a jubilee. A jubilee is in the Bible every 50 years. All debts were canceled. So the point being, can you imagine, Doug, that you have this global uprising, you have this global debt meltdown, you have absolutely a stalemate in goods and services, especially goods, traveling and traversing the oceans and then obviously the countries, and all of a sudden a man comes on the scene and says, I'm going to forgive everybody's debt. And you're going to come into the New World Order, and everybody's going to be equal. Of course, some of us have to be a little more equal because we're the ones that dreamed this whole thing up, and it's Animal Farm on steroids. But the point is that now we've got everything is in position. And if you even look at the Drudge headlines, Joe, I know you watch this stuff like a hawk, and the thing is that every single story is more and more surveillance. Now I think we need to get to the major point. We are seeing the advance forces in our country to take this nation over, just like the Russian Viktor Suvorov and others, Stanislav Lunev and other defectors, Vasily Mitrokhin, KGB archivists. These are real people, by the way. You can look their names up on the Internet. Mitrokhin's a hard one to spell, but the point being is that they talked about the time that our government or their friends in our government would absolutely allow the prepositioning of Soviet materials and men in this country. Never in the history of the United States have U.S. troops trained with Spetsnaz, Special Forces, the Russians, in this country. People every day, Doug, and well, forgive me, not every day, that wouldn't be accurate. Every hour are sending eyewitness reports of trains with military gear, everything from Bradley fighting vehicles, tanks, and these things all have the weapons mounted. Now, weapons mounted mean they're going to be deployed. They're not going to be shipped overseas. You don't mount your weapons and armor and artillery that you're shipping overseas. So we're now at the point where the fulfillment of what Stanislav Lunev, L-U-N-E-V, Suvorov, and that was a pseudonym. Obviously, in those days, you'd want to write with your real name, S-U-V-A-R, I believe, E-V, and then Mitrokin, and it's either M-I-T-R-O-H-K-I-N. These are real names. I'm telling you this for a reason, not to say whoopee. I'm telling people they need to understand that. So even in the KGB archives that were given to the West, this whole plan, and by the way, they even have a name for the new country that will be ours if the Soviets succeed, and it's called Amorus. And believe it or not, Doug, almost 20 years ago, there was a whole Earth catalog that showed a picture of the Kremlin, and in the flag was a combination of the American flag, but where the stripes were the American flag, and then in the star field, it was a hammer and sickle. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but that goes back 20 years. Now, in the last week, the general staff, the highest-ranking Soviet military leaders, and Medvedev, before Putin was reelected, made the statement that they will not allow the deployment of the missile shield in Poland. They reserve the right to nuclear first strike, so that brings us into the crisis that's going on, and most people don't give a darn and don't even care because it sure doesn't affect them yet. And that's the fact that Russia fired an intercontinental ballistic missile, a Topol, which is a nuclear-capable ICBM, over Lebanon. They launched it, from one of their republics, but in order to show the world that they have reach, and whoever interfered with it, if the telemetry was interfered with or someone took it down or whatever. But the whole point was, this was a statement: Russia intends to follow up with, when they feel threatened, they will initiate a first strike. So ask yourself this, Doug and Joe, and I need your opinion, because this thing's, even for me, I'm going, this would be where Doug and Joe, the investigators' lineal skills, would come in handy. You've got to ask yourself, why are we being threatened and the relationship with the USSR, at least seemingly in the world, is beyond tense, yet we've got all their soldiers here. And the plan was to basically take over the CIA and the NSA headquarters. Can you imagine if they knew every spy that was in the Middle East and in Russia that was working for our former intelligence agencies? What a coup that would be. Can you tell how easy it would be just to terminate your enemies on a hit list? And for the record, Spetsnaz is not regular military. It's not Soviet paratroopers. Those are assassins, and they generally are, in the classic sense, they're demolition. They blow stuff up, they kill people, they assassinate people. That's their mission statement. You go look it up in Wikipedia. And the point being, back in 1978, there were 30,000. The actual numbers were classified. So the mixed signals, Doug, are what is so astonishing to me that even I got a call from somebody in Arizona today, and, forgive me, in Colorado. I guess they got another fire now in southern Colorado that's started, and the people in Colorado are starting to say, something suspicious. I got news for you. You and I and Joe are talking about this stuff a month ago, and they're being set on purpose because that's gray terror. And I'm telling you this, if people don't wake up, I don't think they have much longer to wake up. They can either wake up or they will guess basically, and we're going to talk about what they need to do, but they need to recognize it's not a future tense. Everything they have known as basically the foundation of this country is destroyed. Let me give you a great scripture tonight, and it'll be the hallmark from which, I talk. It says in Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Everybody I know is almost in a state of mourning, a state of sadness. And I'm talking about the people having dreams and visions, and the Lord actually giving them, if you will, the smell of death in the air. And I mean, God's not kidding, Doug. He absolutely says enough is enough. And I believe that we are beyond the point of 2 Chronicles 7:14. I believe we're into the realm of personal repentance, getting right with Jesus, and then basically we as the Christians must hide ourselves in Him until His indignation be passed. Because again, it's kind of like this. The devil knows what makes God angry. He's had 6,000 years of created man's history, and then how long before that, before he fell and rebelled, to basically do everything he can to get God's creation to rebel against God. And because God is a holy God and a just God, that God will respond, and God is responding. I believe it's safe to say, and in no uncertain terms, America, your days are over. The best is not yet to come. The worst is unfolding, and it's basically man the lifeboats, batten down the hatches, or dive, as the submarine used to give the command, and prepare for depth charges. Because, again, it's not attack, attack, attack. Sure, we are to attack, but the bottom line is that unless the people of God stand up, wake up, speak up, and begin to fight in the realm of the Spirit that Jesus has given us all authority, then we're going to have to basically suffer the consequences. And unfortunately, when God judges a nation, the righteous suffer through it too. It doesn't mean that He's pouring out His wrath on the Christians, because we're not appointed to wrath. But the bottom line is the devil's pouring his wrath out on Christians, and just as the people find it disgusting that we would even consider allowing a pagan form of worship in this nation that beheads people, that sexually mutilates women, that stones women buried in their heads, and then tolerate people turned loose with nuclear weapons that basically say, and this is Ahmadinejad who made this statement, he made this statement that if it's necessary to bring about the return of the Imam Mahdi, he will sacrifice, 50 million Iranian lives. Well, I got news for you. I think there's probably 49,999,000 Iranians or whatever that probably don't think that's such a cool idea. It's like everybody said, well, let's all walk the plank together, and obviously the smart people throw the guy that said that into the water and satisfy the bloodlust of the sharks. They just don't follow suit. But unfortunately, the Pied Piper of perdition in this land has played his trumpet so well that now everyone is basically heading into the bottomless pit, and they're doing it because everybody's plugged into the Borg, and they don't know how to differentiate truth. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about, how to break the command, control, and communication, the C3 of the devil. And that's critical, because that's what the military will do and utilize with an EMP strike. Imagine this, Doug. Imagine tonight, this broadcast we're doing, that's the last broadcast we ever do. I'm not prophesying that or even praying that happens, of course. But imagine this. People go to the phone doesn't work. People go to their cell phones don't work. They go turn on the TV doesn't work. There's no power, by the way. And how long does it take for people to figure out something really bad has happened? Well, the voice of conscience will try and say everything will be better in an hour. Then it turns to everything will be better in a day. Then it turns to everything will be better in a week. How long do they leave the power off? How long will it stay off? Well, I think everybody should read the book. What is it, 1 second after? And that's the answer. That will be. But so understand this. Prior to the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse, the banks will be hit with a cyber attack. Look, this is being told to me by a banker in that world. And that they know it. And I asked them, I said, so where are you guys, all your money? You know what they said? You'll love this. Guns, gold, and grub. I said, well, yeah, I used to talk about the four G's. I said the most important one's God. And the thing is that, the idea is that, and he told me, he said, Steve, all the big money's out of the euro already. He said all the big money's out of out of the American dollar already. He said the only thing you've got is high-frequency trading between the Fed and Federal Reserve and some of the bigger banks. And by the way, Goldman Sachs does pretty much rule the financial world. They took Ansel Rothschild's statement literally, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who writes its laws. Well, we've got some of the best paid politicians who kind of like that. And by the way, Doug, there are no political solutions to the problem presented in the United States of America. People are furious over Rand Paul's endorsement now of Romney. people still, even the Ron Paulites, and I have made the statement, I like his financial policy, but that's as far as I can go, because the thing is that it bothers me now. I don't know the nature of what was said or what was done to get Rand Paul to back Romney, but just a month ago, Rand Paul wasn't very favorable to Romney, and maybe it's the attitude, well, anything's better than the current occupant of the White House, and I don't think people understand that the same people that put him in are getting ready to put another guy in. I mean, here's what's critical at this point is when I said batten down the hatches, this thing is upon us. People have got to understand that there is no white horse going to show up. The cavalry is not going to show up. The U.S. military, they're going to show up, but not to save you. And the point is the battle going on in the heavenlies, in both the spiritual world and the top secret black ops world. Look, lies in Indiana, lies in Michigan. The sound in Michigan is absolutely astonishing. There are reports of trees being blown over. And I don't know if you followed up with the one blogger that said he was arrested because he wanted to talk to somebody and get an answer, but my take is that something very big, very powerful, either of this world or out of this world, i.e. either one of our top secret aircraft was shot down, by whom is another question, or something from another dimension or galaxy was shot down. That could explain the residual radiation, the speed at which it was encountered, and whatever weapon system took it down. By the time it was hit, going at the speed those things travel at, it would literally be, not in Indiana, but in Michigan in a matter of moments, if not, 10, 20 seconds. So there's so much going on right now that, and the Bible talks about even the powers of heaven will be shaken. But Doug, it's amazing. Personal responsibility and accountability are the two things that I find most Christians, or at least professing Christians, don't want to deal with. They don't want to deal with it from a standpoint, they don't take Jesus seriously when he says that we'll all stand before, those who are Christians stand before the judgment seat of Christ and give account of our faithfulness or our faithlessness, and we'll all stand and the Lord will instantly reveal what was the thought and intent of our heart. And I got to tell you something, when Jesus asks the question, when the Lord returns, will he find faith in the earth? I don't think he's going to turn on Christian TV to get that question answered for him.
No, and you covered a lot of real estate there, Steve, in that discourse.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit because a couple people have asked me about the Paul situation, and I just want to say this, that I never was 100%, sold that Ron Paul was who he said he was, but except for his voting record, and I did support him. He did inject good ideas and got attention to a lot of important issues. But for him to be the exception to the rule when it comes to politicians, thinking that way is kind of naive. But the benefit of this happening is hopefully it draws people to look more to God and look, beyond politicians and realize that politicians are not able to save or fix our problems alone. And if there's any, blue light or shining light that comes out of this, it can be that. Also, you talked about the Indiana and Michigan situation. I haven't been able to find too many more updates beyond what was first released in the first 24 hours. Have you heard anything as to why the radiation levels spiked the way they did?
Joe and Steve, I'm going to tell you this. This afternoon I did have the opportunity to call a television station in Michigan, and I spoke with a reporter there, and for whatever reason, and I don't understand why, he would not give me his name, okay? But
I understand why. Doug, you got to know why. Nobody wants to go on record because they end up dead, and I'm serious about that.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I came at him as a journalist, not as an investigator. I said, look, I was with CanadaFreePress.com, and I was just looking at, what happened. In fact, this was a gentleman that was on the newscast, and he said one thing that struck me, and I just couldn't, I can't shake this. He said, look, he was in the area where the trees snapped, the tops of the trees snapped, and he said, he was he's expecting to find pieces of debris, and he said he couldn't find anything except shattered limbs and leaves and bark and what have you. And he said it was almost like a force, like a gust of wind came down and hit the trees. And I just
those are shockwave weapons, okay? And a shockwave weapon, if you put your lips together and go, like you're trying to blow out a candle, but you go like making the P sound like that. Right. Imagine that, attenuated a billion times, and that's what the shockwave weapon is. Now, let me share this. Because of the nature of the reactor and some of our top secret stuff and the way the electrogravitic propulsion systems run, and that, again, if you're hearing me right, it's electrogravitic. Those of you that don't understand it, Stan Deo explains it. You can go on Wikipedia. Tom Bearden went into extreme detail, B-E-A-R-D-E-N, but electrogravitic. It would make sense, and it would stand to reason on evidence, Doug, that something's core was also blown up. That would account for the radiation readings. And by the way, it's BS. I sell radiation monitors. I've sold them for 20 years, really sophisticated, high-dollar ones as well as inexpensive analogs. And I can tell you point blank that when you get a specific dispersal pattern of specific intensity of radiation, that you usually can track it back to a source. Now, I don't have any isotope readings. The isotope readings would give me a better indication. No one that I know has an isotope monitor. Those are about $20,000, by the way.
Wow.
And the point is that given the fact that there was radiation in one state, the shock wave or the shock effect, but there were also a lot of military helicopters in the air. So the reason why there wasn't a lot of debris, I can tell you this, debris is sanitized instantly when it comes to the world of black ops, okay? Now, that makes us wonder why the SEALs' supposed secret helicopter was never blown up or taken out with a jet in Pakistan, or our illustrious drone that Iran shot down. Well, I think the answer is pretty evident on that one, but let's just stick with the story in Indiana and Michigan. Something has to be an initiating source of primary radiation. I'm not talking background radiation, but I'm talking the stuff that would give those type of readings out. And given the fact that the readings are out there and the readings are so pronounced and so, how should I say this, trackable through different meters in different areas that would be in the flight path, or let's say this, the crash path, or the target path of the acquired vehicle, it makes more sense to me that something was taken out or taken down, which would ultimately result, too, in the way the reactor propulsion system and the way the integrated propulsion systems go hand in hand. That explains it to me. It explains it to my satisfaction, unless someone can come up with a more detailed, if you will, not only conjecture, but based on black ops stuff, as I was, how should I say this, taught it by some of the people in that world. The thing I would say is that it's safe to assume that the truth is not only out there, the truth is plain for all to see, yet isn't it amazing? We poor, dumb American taxpayers who are the targeted individuals in the coming war on us, every day we turn, it's just lies, lies, and lies. And I don't know, Joe, have you guys seen the whole NATO exercise in Tampa, Florida?
Yes, I did see that. There are a few videos, one newly released just in the last couple days. It's a longer 6-minute version that shows the whole, the mayor took part in pretending he was a hostage who was kidnapped, and they raided Tampa with Marine helicopters and by boat with 96 different countries, I think, were involved in the drill. And it was very surreal watching the footage of all the soldiers, basically storming Tampa.
Yeah, certainly Tampa and Tehran only have the T's in common. And somebody can say, what the hell is going on? Well, the answer to that is it's plain for everyone to see. Every city that basically is having these drills is important in one way or another, by way of military, by way of banking. It doesn't matter if it was Chicago before, it doesn't matter if it's Dallas, it doesn't matter if it's the oil refinery regions of the Houston area. All of the areas that have exercises are being planned, so when they're implemented, they've already done it. They've had their, quote, introductory course to, taking over the cities. So, what else can it mean? This is not, see, here's the thing that really infuriates me, and it should infuriate every American citizen. Since when did we become the bad guys? And if people don't understand that danger, 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 the robot on Lost in Space is like on absolutely speed warning, and yet everybody thinks it's maybe if you will, a movie set or something. Joe and Doug, it's beyond imagination at what they're doing in front of us.
Well, yeah, I can't even think of people making this up, in their mind. I mean, the Stephen King novel, it doesn't even come close to this stuff. Now, excuse me, you mentioned, just to take a few steps back, you mentioned, of course, Stanislav Lunev, who defected to the United States back in 1992. Steve, that missile launch in the USSR, and everyone said, "Oh, that was they initially thought it was a UFO." This is back last Wednesday, I guess it was, or Thursday.
Not too long ago, yeah, a couple days ago.
Folks, if you have the opportunity, through the eyes, he wrote a book. Through the eyes of the enemy, and it was kind of a self-published memoir, or published memoir. And he described his work as a Soviet spy. It's extremely important to understand what this man said, because exactly what Steve is saying and what others are saying is what's taking place right now. But again, you mentioned the missile launch. We've got people who are interested in that, wanting to know: is this a practice run for an EMP that you're referencing, perhaps, or could this be just a show of force, or where does this fit in?
Well, I think it's a show of force, and basically it's a reinforcement by Vladimir Putin, who was on the front of Drudge, that he's serious. Let me share something I know about the Russians. By the way, I think the Russian people are some of the most amazing people in the world. They're hardworking. I'm talking to people now. But I can tell you something, where I used to write on Soviet war policy years and years ago when I had my newsletter and I dealt with civil defense. In Russia it's called MPVO, and I don't speak Russian. I obviously had to deal with English language translations. I will tell you this, though. I was in the process of getting to, good night, General Alexander Lebed, to interview him on my talk radio program when I first started in talk radio, and I had made the initial approach before he was murdered, and he was murdered, and I said that on Coast to Coast, I think the night he was, or within a day or so, and people said, "How do you know that?" I said, "I understand how their world works." So someone gave the order to take him down. By the way, Alexander Lebed was a national security advisor for Boris Yeltsin, and he actually testified before the U.S. Congress, especially the Weldon Committee, WELDON, on suitcase nukes in America. And I want to explain something, too. I wrote a book. It's the only one I've never published, and the reason I never published it, and I should just throw it up on the Internet. I probably, if I could find it, but the point is that it was called Lucifer's Luggage, Suitcase Nukes in America. My last count from my sources in this country right now are 169 or 179 strategically placed nuclear weapons. These are not Cold War relics. These are the state-of-the-art hybrids. A state-of-the-art hybrid just simply means you buy whatever parts you need from all the world's arms merchants and you bring them together. There are so many nuclear physicists that were in the world that you could hire. Iran did a good job on the Russians after the breakup of the Soviet Union. And by the way, I don't call it the breakup. I call it the fake-up, F-A-K-E up, okay? It's true the Iron Curtain came down, but guess what? Everything was just allowed to freely flow into the West for this ultimate time. And whether you believe it or not, when you've got the Communist Party, USA, pretty much running the United States of America, and you have dedicated communists and their trainers who are openly saying that America is the greatest country in the world, we intend to change all that, well, how do you like those election promises now, Mr. and Mrs. America, those of you who voted for the contemporary guy in the White House? The bottom line is that it's not just him, though. It's our Congress, and it's our senators. By the way, I think the president should seriously take up a singing career. Guy's got a great voice, but he should get out of politics. And I'm not being a smartass. I really do believe the guy's got a good voice.
No,
the thing is that... Go ahead.
I I was just going to say, look at, Obama's in office now. Last election, we had the choice between Obama and John McCain, and now we see John McCain, who is a big supporter of the NDAA, big supporter of the law of the sea treaty now. It would be just as bad. These people were not given an accurate choice of two different people. The continuity of agenda and the military-industrial complex New World Order have taken over our government and all other powerful governments, and we have no choice. We have no ability to elect a leader that can affect real change in our country and our society.
No, we don't.
Well, again, it's National Defense Authorization Act 1867, even though the courts have upheld parts of it are, quote, unconstitutional, the very fact that our devils in Congress and the devils, and our devils, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you say, why would you say they're our devils? Because you voted for them. Every single, Montana, okay, we've got Tester and Baucus as senators. They both voted for it. Can I tell you something? This is the fall of Rome on slow motion in one realm. On the right hand, it's slow motion. On the left hand, it's an accelerator. It's like the time tunnel because, again, there's nothing new under the sun, just new infestations and inventions of evil. The thing that is important, Joe, to remember this is that it's the Congress and Senate who are complicit in this to the tune of there's nobody now. There's nobody. I mean, I even said, I think a couple weeks ago, that Rand Paul was the only senator that, I would even, give a nod to. The fact the Republicans are weenies, and they're worried that, listen, weenies? Oh, good night. That would be too kind, and the libertarians, here's the answer. The answer is simply this. Just as Abraham looked for a city whose builder and maker is God, I think all Christians have lost track of the fact that, number one, they're to be the salt of the earth. Number two, they're to basically be the light of the world, although not the red light of the world. And the thing is that if in the divine providence of God, he is going to shake it all. And by the way, it begins at the house of God. That's what 1 Peter says. We've seen some tremors in the house of God, but wait until all the mega ministries start losing all of their donors and donees. Wait until they can no longer shake down the sheep because the sheep are trying to stay alive as best they can because they can't feed their family and they can't buy the clothing or pay for their utilities to keep the heat on or the water going or whatever. I'm telling you, there's going to be a backlash. And see, this is the thing. Even in the World War III letter that was written by Albert Pike to Mazzini that obviously the Masons want to deny, but look, it's out there in history. And for whatever reason, if he didn't write it, it certainly is the game plan because they want people to lose heart in all religions. And they want to pit the Jews and Christians against Islam and Islam against everything. And then they want to take out the secularists and bring on the true Luciferians. And so the Luciferians are more determined in what they want to see coming and are working everything to bring about than the Christians are, because the Christians are still singing the sweet by and by and worried about their ascension robes. And by the way, they should be out of here by now if there was a pre-tribulation rapture, because it only gets worse from here. Jesus didn't pray to the Father to take them out of the world, but to keep them in the world through his power. So in essence, what we have doctrinal emasculation. We have basically the femalization, that's as nice as I know how to say it, you guys, of men in the pulpit. And by the way, that's even questionable. The point is that if we do not recognize the lateness of the hour, and we'll be forced into recognizing it. And so, Doug, all of your efforts, my efforts, Joe's efforts, and everybody else's on talk radio, warning, it obviously demands a response. But people basically want you, Joe, to do it, you, Doug, to do it. They want me to do it, or, they'll accuse me of not doing it enough. And then I sit back and say, but what have you done, Anonymous, this, Y, or, X, Y, or Z? The bottom line is we're dealing with some really pathetic excuses for people. And, again, I'm saying that in the context, and again, Rich Lamb, why don't you just go hang yourself? Don't listen to the show. There are guys, Doug, and I normally wouldn't do that, but there are guys that are absolutely paid pain in the asses, and he happens to be one, and yet he doesn't want to listen, yet he listens. You follow me? Calling it boring. I hope that man in hell has total time to reflect on not only his ignorance, but on his absolute incessant hate for the truth. And again, I thank the intercessors who are praying, but I pray that God literally opens the portals of hell for him in Jesus' name.
You know, I'll tell you what, Steve, we have never encountered such fierce opposition to getting the word out.
It's not just us either. It's people we know, pastors who have ministries who are not afraid to talk about what is happening on the Internet. And unfortunately, there are more pastors on the Internet speaking the truth about what's going on in our nation with their religion than there are in the churches. And that's very sad. And that needs to change if we're going to help any people to get salvation in the real world, not just on the Internet.
Exactly.
It's such like you said, Steve, the church has been feminized. It's been neutered. It's been washed away from all the true doctrine that it's supposed to be teaching to the congregations, and it's because of politics and money and the man corrupting the message. And it continues to get worse. The attacks continue to get worse. We see the more anti-Semitism now than we've ever seen. At least I have on the Internet, and it will continue to be this way.
And
you know, it's funny, you guys, because I'm in touch with people around the world pretty much 24/7. I mean, even wake up, through the 3 or 4 hours I take speech, and these people contact me. And the reason they contact me is because some of them actually tell me this. They're trying to get right with Jesus because they know it's the end. These are people that have more money than most of us can even count. And some of them are really having genuine conversion experiences, and I thank God for that. But I think it's funny that people who know nothing, do nothing, say nothing, they say plenty, but they never help their fellow man. They don't give a damn about anybody but themselves, but somehow they become the most vociferous. Okay, let me ask you this, Doug and Joe, and anybody who's in the Air Force who can answer this, send me an email, is why do we see A-10s, and I'm talking actual A-10s, all over the country doing loops, or C-130 doing circular flight patterns over all the cities? Why are there so many C-130s? Just right now, coming in from Doug in real time, okay? Steve, 50 Humvees enter Boulder, Colorado this morning. Humvees on I-25 with trailers. Occupants wearing civvies. Spetsnaz, question mark. A-10 Warthogs doing wide loops over southern Colorado. Okay, then we get reports from all over the country. C-130s doing circles for hours on end over specific areas. Is it a mind control thing? Is it a psychological operation to get people to become aware of this, or is it not aware of it, but is it just to dull our senses so when it's for real and parachutes are coming out of them and with strange-looking camouflage? Again, let history record that those who chose to say nothing, do nothing are traitors to the very principles that have made not only this country great, but enriched them. That one guy just rebuked, who's beyond my most profane words. He once sent me an email saying life is good for me. I don't care about anybody else. Well, that pretty much sums up the elite. I think maybe we've got more elite listening to this show than we might think. But again, see, people are looking for a political solution. I can tell you this, that the Republican Party is no more Republican than the penguin is King Kong. Okay, I'm not talking about the penguin in the Batman movies. I'm talking about the Arctic bird. The point is that people have absolutely been numbed and dumbed down. So command, control, and communication. First thing you've got to do in the spiritual warfare is silence the voice of the enemy. How do you do that? Well, first of all, the Bible says we take every thought captive to the obedience of cross. Of Jesus Christ. How do you do that? You learn to see that God's thoughts are not your thoughts, but He will share His thoughts to try and help us, because He created us and loved us, to basically make decisions in the free will capacity that He's given to align with Him. So command, control, and communication, once you quit listening to the lying devils and you silence the voice, you quit doing what's sin. Sin is missing the mark. You can't expect to go where God wants you to go if you're going someplace the devil's already got you going. You can't serve two masters. So that's the wonderful word R. It means to repent. It means to change direction. Lord, I'm sorry that I'm doing this. I confess it as sin. Help me not to do it, whatever the specific sin is. See, Doug, people think it's mortal sins and venial sins or venial sins and stuff. No, sin is a power that the devil exerts and exercises over mankind. And people say, I don't want to hear about Jesus. Of course not. You're going to hell. And if we tell you about Jesus, maybe you, by the grace of God and by the quickening of the Holy Spirit, can repent. But very soon, the night comes when no man can work. And we're talking, we're talking about the financial meltdown and corruption. So, Doug, I guess in the United States, here's what will have to happen, Joe. The people will have to go. No money in the bank. They'll have to go. No ATM machines. They'll have to go. They put their credit card in the pump at the gas, and it says declined, not authorized. They'll have to see it firsthand, and then that plays into the Illuminati's hand, because then they turn each man against his neighbor. Oh, they've already stirred up the strife. Good night. If you want to see race relations thrown back 100 years, just listen to the provocateurs who are trying to basically get blacks on whites, whites on blacks, Hispanics on blacks and whites, everybody. And I'm telling everybody, even the gang members, wake up, guys. You're being handled by the puppet masters in their suits and their cash and their fancy badges and their weaponry. You see, it's amazing. We get disarmed, and some of the most wicked, evil men coming out of Mexico, who, by the way, other than Mexicans, are being armed with some of the state-of-the-art communications gear, and guess what? They're going to take us on.
Right, exactly. And Steve, before I forget, I want to mention this because we touched on this earlier. This just came out. Rachel Hirschfield wrote about this, and I wanted to let everyone know about this because this is so important. Steve, you and I spoke off air this weekend a couple of times, and we mentioned about Israel and about the situation in the Middle East. I apologize for kind of straying off topic here, but I think this is very important for people to hear. The United States this past week blocked Israel's participation for the first time ever in the Global Counterterrorism Forum in Istanbul, Turkey, on Friday. Now, Israel's got one of the most extensive counterterrorism experience forces in the world, okay? And they were excluded from the meeting by fierce objections, or due to the fierce objections by Turkish president, the Turkish president. However, the U.S. said, not a problem. We won't have Israel involved in this. And talk about a slap in the face. The divide against the United States and Israel is getting deeper and deeper. And this is something I've never seen before. In fact, I've been getting emails about this all day about what we're preparing to do to Israel. And I just want to mention that. I know it's kind of out of place here, but you talk about the ultimate betrayal of an ally. So the bottom line here is what we're doing is we're cutting Israel completely out of the loop for counterterrorism, and we're replacing them with the Muslim countries that we actually propped up. So just be forewarned, obviously, that the relations are between the United States and Israel are getting worse by the moment. So,
well, of course, and look. Even under Bill Clinton's reign, when I was on talk radio, there was a time, that's funny, isn't it, Doug? We say the same thing over and over. Some of the prophets, I'm not a prophet, I'm a watchman. Never in my entire 20 years of being on talk radio, I do not claim to be a prophet. I am not one. The bottom line is that some of the people say, I've listened to you for 4 years and it's all the same, SH. I said, right. No, it isn't. It's different. We were telling you what's going to happen then. Now it's happening before your denying damnable eyes. And see, the thing is that I don't know if people understand. See, it doesn't matter. Even if I could have gotten a couple generals to come on and speak, and brother, I bought satellite phones and voice changers, and they, in their world, know how to bounce off more satellites and from different parts of the globe and off planet. And Doug, the thing that really disturbs me the most is the fact that I thank God that there are so many people that want to hear this stuff and are tuning in to hear this stuff. But I also understand that until it actually happens and it's on their porch,
that they don't get it. They don't get it. There's never been a deployment of military. They can deny everything. They can call everything we've ever said. Oh, by the way, where are their 10 books that they've written? And boy, I got to tell you this. I've spent 40 years of my life talking to these guys. I've spent more money than maybe Mr. Smartass himself spends to go out and get truth or information. I forget. He only cares about himself, so he certainly wouldn't spend his money. The bottom line is that you can find out the truth if you're willing to ask the right question. But because of the nature of, just like the reporter that, didn't want to give his name, can you blame him, Doug?
No,
really,
I can't.
You and I both know people that get whacked.
Yeah, and especially in the venue in which we're dealing with now. The administration just admitted to hundreds of meetings with a jihad-linked group. According to various sources, Obama's deputies are holding hundreds of closed-door meetings with a jihad-linked lobbying group that's widely derided by critics here. Look, an arm of the theocratic Muslim Brotherhood. Now, this admission recently came from a guy by the name of George Salim, I believe his name is. He's basically a go-between between CARE and the White House. Well, George Salim is the White House new director for community partnerships, and what they've done is they've actually replaced people to the Muslims in the White House, not just Muslims, but Muslims affiliated with Al Qaeda, with the people who are fighting into these closed-door meetings with the White House, and our security now is compromised, and so no, I don't blame So yeah, exactly. When we talk to sources, when we talk to these people, for example, that reporter, I guess I don't blame them for not wanting to give their names, and very few people now want to say what's going on really in the White House, outside or within the Beltway, in DHS, in other areas. We've got drones, Steve. I got information today that we've got drones. In fact, one armed drone, according to the information I got. They're planning on using this armed drone to take out a vehicle as a show of force in the desert southwest of the United States. Okay, now I'm not sure if I shared this with you or not. I don't recall if I did or not, but to justify the use of armed drones here, according to my source, there's going to be an alleged threat, and inside the U.S. that's going to be neutralized by an armed drone. Whether or not this is this will be a false flag. Whether or not this is going to be carried out, I'm not sure. But but the fact of the matter is, it was discussed. Now, so we're living in, and I know that we just covered a whole bunch of topics, but I guess we can see by the various topics and the intensity and the pace in which they're going, things are happening at a breakneck speed. So, man, Steve, I'll tell you what, I've never seen anything like this before.
Well, there's never been anything like it, and Doug, to quote the words of Jesus, nor will be again. I don't think people understand, when we were on the topic a couple of years ago when they were GPS coordinating every house of the gun owners. Myself and my neighbor got GPS. I mean, I was out in the front yard. I still kicked myself for not taking extreme measures. That's my fault, and I should have been willing to pay the price. I'll leave that to the listener's imagination. But the thing is I've said over and over and over, all of the tactics, all the weapons, all of the plans, plots, technology that's over there is coming here. So the point is people said, they don't have that much missiles. Trust me, they have plenty of missiles. And look, all they have to do is grid off the United States. Or how about this dumbass statement? There are 300 million guns in America. Are you kidding me? It's the bottom line is it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that there are X number of gun stores. You take them out. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that, look, if you're in Texas, you probably got more guns, or in Montana. I don't understand. Montana, I think, is one of the nations with the most guns in the household by national averages, yet we continue to elect the most liberal, liberty-defying senators and some congressmen that anybody can get. I mean, you can't outdo our senators for being liberals, okay?
That's right.
And this is something that's strange. Look, Doug, here's the thing. It's amazing to me that it doesn't dawn on people. Look, I just got another email. I'm sorry, these emails are coming in, and I thank the Lord for these. God bless you, Manette, on this. God bless you, Paul. God bless each one of you who are sending real time. But she said, yesterday my daughter called me to ask why all the military convoys were on the road. She was going south on 294. This was the first time, she said, that there were a lot of military trucks, and it was very unsettling for her. What I told you is happening, you know? It
right.
just is absolutely a total positioning of these people. You know, here's a call for. This is one of my friends, Steve. We banked with BOA and spent several hours trying to withdraw some cash today. Had to call 10 different locations to finally line up locations that would give us our own cash. We were told over and over again that we had to give the bank a 1-week notice. People don't realize if you can't get your money before a real panic, they are fools to think that they will waltz down to the bank, get their money during a panic. Take care, and God bless you guys for tonight's show. And that's a man who's personally known to me, who was personally telling me from, that the fact that Tokyo would be evacuated. Excuse me? Who else on talk